Really, NHL? You couldn't give me one day? You couldn't give me one day between round one and round two to get these predictions done and out there? Well, you know what, NHL? You can't stop me. You can't stop me with your scheduling voodoo. A cold basement on a midnight on a weekday when I work at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. That can't stop me either. These are your second round predictions, 2015 NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Game 7 between Tampa Bay and Detroit just ended. Tampa Bay winning that game 2-0 to move on to the second round to play Montreal. With that, my first round predictions only ended up at 4-4. In the Eastern Conference, I was 3-1, correctly predicting the Rangers, Montreal, and Tampa Bay to win, and actually predicted New York and Tampa Bay perfectly in the exact right number of games. Western Conference did, quite a bit worse. I was only 1-3 in the Western Conference. I did, however, predict Chicago to win their series and predicted that series in the perfect number of games. So I'll take 4-4, especially when 3 of those 4 series were perfect. But yeah, NHL's not exactly working with me on this, but here we go. This is the Eastern Conference video. We're going to talk about the 2 Eastern Conference semifinal matchups before we get into the Western Conference with the next video. So in the Eastern Conference, again, where I was 3-1, your 2 matchups in the Eastern Conference semifinals are the Metropolitan #1 New York Rangers taking on the Metropolitan #2 Washington Capitals. And in the Atlantic Division, it's Atlantic #1 Montreal Canadiens in a rematch of last year's first round matchup with Atlantic #2 Tampa Bay Lightning. We're going to start with my Homer series. We're going to get that out of the way as quick as we possibly can. Montreal, Tampa Bay. So far this season, Montreal 54-34, 233 goals scored, 201 goals against. Taking on Tampa Bay 54-35, 1 extra game in the first round, 279 goals for, 225 goals against. Montreal, of course, has home ice advantage by virtue of being the Atlantic Division champion. Season series here, though, it was the largest spread of any of the other playoff matchups. Tampa Bay dominated the season series between these two teams, 5-0. Montreal was 0-4-1 against Tampa Bay this season. Tampa Bay 5-0, outscoring Montreal by a huge margin, 21-8. In Montreal, the Canadiens are 28-16 this season, very good mark at home, versus Tampa Bay, who still has that losing record on the road of 20-24. In Tampa Bay, the Lightning showed a little bit of susceptibility in that first round matchup against Detroit, losing 2 of their 4 home games. They are still 34-11 at home this year. They are still the best home team in hockey, taking on Montreal, who had a very respectable road record this year, 26-18. In the first round, of course, Montreal won their series in 6 games with Ottawa. The scoring in that series, however, was 12-12. It was perfect scoring across the board there, perfectly even. Montreal, of course, winning 4 of those 6 games. Tampa Bay in the playoffs, of course, they went to 7 games. Tampa Bay did, however, outscore Detroit overall in this series 17-14. Biggest X factor I see here for the Habs, in that first round matchup, they played really well 5-on-5. The goals for to goals against ratio was 1.29, which is, I think, 3rd or 4th best in the first round. But they had an anemic power play. The power play was 5%. Like, that's ridiculous. 1 power play goal in every 20 opportunities. That is awful. And the penalty kill wasn't much better. 75%. I mean, it's still 3 of every 4, but 75% on the penalty kill, not very good. They also gave up 33 shots per game to Ottawa, and that is way too many. All of those 3 areas need to improve. Their power play's got to be better, the penalty kill's got to be better, and they can't be giving up 33 shots a game to Tampa Bay. Somebody like Steven Stamkos or Tyler Johnson, who had 6 goals in that 7-game series against Detroit, will eat Montreal alive if they're giving up 33, 34, 35 shots a game. Biggest X factor here for Tampa Bay, I kind of already mentioned it. I mean, they dominated the season series with this team, 5-0. That is huge, especially for a divisional opponent. They may actually legitimately have the Habs number psychologically. I kind of put quotation marks around that because it's not really a thing, but at the same time it is kind of a thing. So psychologically, that 5-0 regular season mark, it's got to give Tampa Bay a lot of confidence in this series. Aside from that, Steven Stamkos is going to have to be better. He didn't put up a whole heck of a lot in that first round against Detroit. And Tyler Johnson just needs to keep doing what he's doing, man. 6 goals in 7 games. That's going to be a huge, huge determinant in this series. As far as who I think is going to win, I mean, I kind of got, no. I'm going with my team. I have to go with my team, to be perfectly honest. Call me a homer all you want. I have to go with my boys. Montreal played well in the first round. Ottawa did come back on them, but Montreal did, of course, put their foot down and end the series after going up 3-0. I have to take Montreal in this series, but make no mistake about it, if Montreal wins this series, it's going to be a 7-game series. Do not delude yourself into thinking Montreal is going to sweep Tampa Bay again. That is not going to happen. I'm going to take Montreal to win this series in 7 games. I think they split the first 4 games evenly. I think it's Tampa Bay, Montreal in games 1 and 2, and then I think it's Montreal, Tampa Bay in games 3 and 4. Montreal is capable of beating Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. I think Montreal wins game 5. I think Tampa Bay wins game 6. And game 7 in the Bell Center, Carey Price, Vezina Trophy nominee, now Hart Trophy nominee as of today. I think Carey Price and Montreal get it done in game 7. My official pick is Montreal to beat Tampa Bay in 7 games. Now let's take a look at the other Eastern Conference series, the Metropolitan Division 1 versus 2, New York Rangers taking on the Washington Capitals. So far this season, New York Rangers 57-30 on the season. Fantastic. 263 goals scored, only 200 goals scored against. The Washington Capitals so far on the season, 49-40, 258 goals scored, 218 goals against. Season series here, the New York Rangers won 3 of the 4 head-to-head matchups this season. The Rangers outscored Washington in those games only by a margin of 13-10, so these are very close games. In New York so far this season, the Rangers are 27-17, 10 games over 500, very good mark there. Washington only 23-21 on the road, so they are above 500, but kind of a 50-50 split there. In Washington, the Capitals are 26-19, so only 1 fewer win than New York, but 2 more losses, versus the Rangers, who are still the best road team in hockey. 30 road wins on the season. That is insane. That is a great, great road team there. 30-13 on the road are the Rangers. Rangers in the first round, of course, fairly easily dispatched the Pittsburgh Penguins in 5 games, so the Rangers are 4-1, outscoring opponents only 11-8. That was a very low-scoring first-round series between the Rangers and the Penguins. It took the Capitals 7 games to get rid of the New York Islanders, the pesky New York Islanders, in the first round. So Washington is 4-3, and they only outscored the Islanders 16-15 in the first round. So it can't get any closer than that. Biggest X factor here for the Rangers, I got to look at that offense. I mean, only 11 goals scored in 5 games. That's a problem for them, and it almost puts Henrik Lundqvist in a position where he most nights has to be perfect. Now, he was pretty much perfect against Pittsburgh, save for that 1 game. So he was pretty much perfect, but I get worried when a team forces their goaltender to be perfect. That's a problem, because if their goaltender stumbles, they've got nowhere else to go if the offense isn't playing well. Montreal has the exact same problem. So that's going to be my big X factor for this series, is whether or not the Rangers offense continues to, comparatively struggle here and forces their goaltender, whoever the goaltender may be, forces their goaltender to be perfect. Biggest X factor here for the Capitals that I see is going to be that puck possession game. In the first round, the Capitals were 56% on faceoffs. That's a really big number. They were obviously head and shoulders the best faceoff team in the first round. They also did not allow a power play goal against. The penalty kill killed off every penalty they took. Now, the power play was only 15.4%, so that's going to have to improve for them in the second round if they want to really put pressure on the Rangers here. Power play goals is one of the best ways to do it, and the Capitals certainly have the team to do that. I think the power play is going to have to be better in the second round, and they're going to have to try to continue to dominate the faceoff circle there. Puck possession equals, advantage for sure, and the Rangers were less than 50% on their faceoffs in the first round, so that's going to be key for the Capitals, puck possession and putting pressure on the Rangers on the power play. I want to see a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final. You want to see a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final. We all want to see a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final. And that's the way I'm going to go with this. I'm going to take the Rangers to win this series. I think the Rangers can get it done in 6 games. Washington's not going to be an easy out, but I think the Rangers get it done in 6. I think the Rangers win games 1 and 2 in New York. They're a very, very good home team. And again, Washington, kind of a mediocre road team. So I think New York goes up 2-0 on the first 2 games in New York. I think Washington wins Game 3. I think the Rangers win Game 4 in Washington. I do, however, think the Capitals can come back in Game 5 in New York and beat New York in New York. So I'm going to give Washington Game 5, but I think the Rangers turn around and do the exact same thing to them in Game 6. Rangers win the series in Game 6 in Washington. That's going to be my pick, Rangers in 6. So we got Habs in 7 and Rangers in 6. That's going to be your Eastern Conference Final as far as I'm concerned, a rematch of Montreal against New York. What about the West? Check the next video. See you in a minute.